The views and opinions of this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. There is substantial risk of loss in trading futures and options, which you should carefully consider prior to trading. Well, are the grain and livestock markets starting to stabilize a little bit after a volatile few days of trade? Kind of felt that way on Thursday because it was pretty quiet overall across the board with mostly green on the screen, a little bit of red in the soy complex, but overall a fairly decent day on Thursday. Let's talk about it. Joining us now for market analysis, Brian Doherty with Total Farm Marketing. And Brian, good to have you back on the show. Hope you're having a great week so far. And kind of quiet. Few notes on Thursday, but overall, it was not a bad day considering how volatile these markets have been the last couple of sessions, Brian.
Yeah, another word is boring. So kind of boring today, but corn did manage to claw higher late in the session, finished near the high of the day, which we had about a nickel trading range on most contracts, Jesse. So not a lot of volatility today, but nice to see corn at least claw back. Got hammered pretty hard after strong gains on Thursday of last week. That was the crop progress, prospective acreage report and quarterly stocks. That gave the market a 15-cent boost, which it had lost about 15 cents the prior 2 days. And then we came back this week and lost 15 cents-ish on the first 2 days. And now we've come back some here in the side. We're kind of in the middle of the range. So what we're hearing is, first of all, on the cash side of things, basis is needed to improve or price improve to get farmers to sell. So we're seeing farmers be a little pickier on not wanting to sell into weakness or be worried about selling into weakness. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think the reason why corn has been so jumpy and back and forth is it does get a favorable USDA report, but then shortly right after that, you got a weekend of rain that the Midwest hasn't seen for months and months and months. So soil profiles a little more charged up, a little better shape. Farmers feeling a little bit less stress on that end, and the market gave some of that away. Wheat back and forth quite a bit. Wheat looks like it wants to break to the top side. A day or two later, it looks terrible. Then it comes ripping right back and going nowhere fast. Soybeans trying to get back and claw back toward $12, having a tough road. Of the three, I'd say the soybean charts concern me maybe the most. You've got continued less than good exports and expectations of supply coming out of both Argentina and Brazil. So beans got a little bit of a tough road ahead of them. The bulls, however, would argue, Jesse, that beans, you look at their carryout, it isn't significantly higher than a year ago, but prices are $2 lower than a year ago. So they're thinking that the market's just waiting for something to give a little bit of a kickstart. But anyway, kind of rambling on there. Not a lot of change by day's end.
No, not really. And even a daily wire sale of beans to Mexico didn't really help out the soybean market on Thursday. I guess I was trying to be nicer. You put it more accurately, just a boring market on Thursday, Brian. So I'll ask you this. Let's go down this road for a second. You and I talked last week after the reports got released, a nice update of these markets. We were looking through things, and now you've had a week to digest those reports and look at a few days of trade. Has anything for you in the grains, any thoughts or perspective, mindset changed since last Thursday's reports, Brian?
I think two things kind of jump out. One is, are we sure on this acreage number? That's a pretty big decline. And then as people kind of thought about this, and I read a lot, so you start reading, well, where are the acres? Where'd they go? Did the USDA take into account that they'd probably expect more, let's call it non-plant acres this year? Last year was so low because it was dry. Maybe is it into specialty crops? I talked to one farmer today, added 500 acres of rye, added some peas, another 500-600 acres, all since 1,000 acres that, not into corn. So maybe that's the answer, but there's some skepticism is my point. So that's one thing. The bigger thing that I think is changed though is just again this sort of take a look at Brazil, take a look at the U.S. If we want to just measure one thing, is the moisture situation, is it better than it was a week ago and 2 weeks ago, or is it worse? Meaning, did we get more? It's been better. It's just there's no way to slice it. Talking to a farmers who are a totally different tone this week. Hey, we got inch, we got 2, we got 3 inches of rain. We got more rain this last weekend or early this week than we had in 3 months of winter. So I think that's kind of the capper in the corn market right now, maybe even in beans, is just that you can't really, build any traction and momentum of something that looked like it was starting to concern the trade a lot more into probably that third week of March, and then it dissipated now because of moisture.
Feels like as well here that really outside of some sort of black swan event, geopolitical issue, et cetera, that we can't foresee, really the next 4 to 6 weeks, US weather is going to be the probably the biggest driver in these grain markets. Brian, would you agree?
The not only the weather, but the perception of weather. That is, as we look ahead and see what does summer really look like. Are we just seeing kind of this typical week of storms that run through the Midwest and spraying and delay things, but it's really a blessing in disguise. It brings moisture, keeps people from going too fast, too quick, all of that kind of stuff. And then we go back to weather, and the back to weather might be: are we continuing to think that, boy, yikes, uh, Brian talked about somebody getting an inch of rain here the first week of April. Now we're at the end of April. We still haven't seen any additional rain, and it's warming up, and that inch went away pretty fast. And are we switching this pattern? Is there some real evidence that we're switching from El Nino to La Nina?
Mhm.
There's about the last I saw, 62% chance from NOAA that indicated that that'll be ushered in the June through August window. Those can be pretty dry and above normal temperature windows.
I want to ask you as well. I haven't talked about this perspective a lot here this week, but obviously the avian flu in dairy cattle has been a major issue and a big impact on the cattle markets themselves. But what about the feed side of the equation? Do you see that there's been some maybe a lid put on some of this grain market movement because of the psychological market concerns from
You
this
hit
outbreak?
the key word was psychological, or I'm going to use perception. This is not good news when you see it breaking on CBS News and talking about,
Mhm.
or any of these major networks. Um, it doesn't provide a vote of confidence. And the herds infected were dairy herds, right? You think, oh my gosh, that might have impact, and dairy prices went down. So the market looked at it and said, this isn't a big deal yet. Um, at least it did in dairy. In corn, it may have been, with the rain, one of those things that traders said, rain and nuts, I don't want anything to do with long corn. Yeah, may very well have had said that. And the beef industry, that too. That's the one that people look at. Oh my God, do I eat meat? Am I going to get contaminated? And so people are just people. What does that mean? Is just they have emotions and they hear things and they're not sure what to think of it. And traders look at that, go, well, if they're not confident in the market and they're not confident, go out and eat beef. We don't want to be long cattle futures right now. Cattle did manage to claw higher today. I think if you want a 2 cents of a personal opinion, this might. One scenario is this just might be something that was big here in early April, and several weeks down the road, we go, oh yeah, whatever happened to that bird flu thing in the cattle? Um, I don't know. We'll see. But the mindset of traders and marketplace, well, if it's in 4 cattle herds and it got transported to Michigan possibly, and maybe to Idaho, where else is it? And how long is it till it just shows up everywhere? Then you've got something that could concern, I think, the consumer uh, more so. But anyway, that's again a little wordy there. But that did not help corn. It did not help cattle futures when this news broke.
And I will echo your sentiment there. It felt like cattle maybe stabilizing. And although I think that now that we're testing for everything, we're probably going to find more of this bird flu in dairy herds or whatever, more across the country for that matter. Feels like maybe barring something catastrophic, the news cycle's kind of evening out here across everything, Brian.
Well, it is, and but people, you, me, everybody. When I say people, I'm just saying
Yeah.
people learn more. So they learn that, well, it doesn't look like this is something where you're going to go out and you're going to reduce the cow herd. This isn't like when it gets into poultry where you've got to quarantine and destroy. This gets in the cattle and you quarantine and you nurse your cattle back to health. It certainly could affect milk supply in those affected herds. Nobody's downplaying that. And yet, I said one of the markets I look for right away to see what's the concern and reaction in the milk market just laid a big goose egg. It's like it didn't even exist. And you would think, well, if this is in herds and you got to quarantine and destroy that milk, this ought to give something to the market to bite its teeth into and buy. Even on an informed speculator just says, I want to buy milk. We didn't even see that. So uh, we'll have to see how this unfolds. But great point. That is the big news story of the last week. And then for me, the other one is just, turning dry ground into less dry ground.
We are talking with Brian Doherty from Total Farm Marketing here on today's program. Brian, just a couple other quick things before we wrap it up here today. I'm curious your thoughts on some of these outside markets. Energies, RBOB gas, crude oil have been moving higher. Gold took a breather Thursday, but gold's been on a tear to the upside as well. The dollar was a little weaker Thursday. I guess for me, this outside market activity has been a little more exciting here in terms of movement this week versus the grains and livestock to some degree as well. Any notes for you in these outside markets you're paying attention to right now?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah, so you're looking. So for me, I'm looking. Well, what's the consequences? So you've got this cocoa that's doubled in value this year, right? And you've got gold that's just skyrocketing. Well, why is gold skyrocketing? Is it supply or is it worries about the economy? All of a sudden, you got the stock market, as I'm talking to you, down nearly 500 points today in the Dow Jones. And that's after hitting new highs here just a few sessions ago, flipping over and really starting to have some weak undertone to it. So the bearish tone in that market all of a sudden could grow. Economic concerns, interest rates often tied to the way that the dollar moves. So Powell this week was talking about, the Federal Reserve Chairman Powell was talking about, he seemed to put wording out there that talked about, yeah, the cuts will come. It'll just, we're taking time. I don't know. There's some of us saying, well, this is kind of the same group told us that inflation was transitory, right? It's just things develop and change and develop and change, and we haven't quite crossed that threshold. So where's the, I always kind of go, well, where's the money flow go then? Does it go to the sideline? Or do you take money out of the equities, which is have a heck of a first quarter? You take money out of gold, and you buy corn. You buy a commodity that's sort of underwater from a production cost of production perspective. You got all the uncertainty with producing it ahead. So that might be the silver lining to some of these other outside markets that have kind of got ahead of steam. You mentioned the energy market. Continues to move higher. $86 now on crude oil. A year ago, 65. U.S. is producing as much as ever. Well, where's it going? Well, we're exporting it, right? So, and not to pick on the administration, but this administration, when the Trump administration was there, were saying, well, they just want to make money exporting it, and well, it's being exported. That's part of it, but it's this world strife and political unrest in the world that has the market, I think rightly concerned. OPEC volunteered 2 million barrels a day less in production first quarter. They're sustaining that second quarter. Russia's going to join that. So, war starts and you hear about sanctions against Russia that will, shake them to their core. And where is it? Right.
Mhm.
So Russia's now dictating what the world oil price can look like and what the consumers. So anyway, there's a lot of things going on out there. I think that the end user, in particular, just needs to keep an eye on these corn, beans, wheat markets are relatively low compared to where they've been. And relative to corn, I just want to make this point that if the acreage number doesn't increase in June, you've seen your biggest production estimates already on the books. They're already out there.
Good thoughts, Brian. That's a great thing to think about here. And as we wrap it up today, I know if folks have questions for you and the team there at Total Farm Marketing, they could reach out. You guys very knowledgeable. If they want to talk through things, look at their operation, their marketing plan, their specific plan. They could reach you guys multiple ways. How can they get in touch with you, Brian?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. The first way, let me hedge myself. I was going to say, unless the corn yield just is phenomenally better than the USD is already forecasting a record yield, it's the biggest crop should be out there already on the books, because we've evaporated 2 million acres. 800-334-9779, best way to catch us. If you want to talk to me directly, there's two Brians. I'm one with a Y, so just say Brian with a Y. Brian with a Y at totalfarmmarketing.com, and email, or please check out our website, totalfarmmarketing.com.
Always insightful. Great to have a conversation again this week. Brian Doherty, Total Farm Marketing. Thanks for joining us on Market Talk, Brian. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Thank you, Jesse. Much appreciated.
That's going to do it for the show today. Find us at markettalkag.com. I'm Jesse Allen. Have a great afternoon.
Make sure to subscribe to the Market Talk YouTube channel. You can watch our latest interviews with top market analysts in the country, find bonus content, and much more. It's easy. Just go to youtube.com/@markettalkag and hit the subscribe button. Or you can search for Market Talk Ag on YouTube.